Week one just got a little more interesting.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we're going to talk about the chaos over at Tennessee and how it relates to Syracuse, because in case you missed it yesterday, Tennessee starting quarterback Nico Iamaleava and the Tennessee Volunteers are parting ways. The quarterback is entering the transfer portal, which leaves us to question, who is Syracuse going to face in week one and where is Nico going to go? We're going to talk about the possible destinations and how they still relate to Syracuse. All that and more here on this edition of Locked On Syracuse. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. So Tennessee starting quarterback Nico Iamaleava is entering the spring transfer portal. Should be noted that the spring transfer portal does not officially open until Thursday, April 16th. If you're unfamiliar with the situation, I will give you the Cliff Notes version. It's happened very quickly over the past few days. Essentially, Nico at Tennessee, the starting quarterback last year, wanted a raise from Tennessee in his contract. And Tennessee was holding firm saying, no, we're not going to give you a raise, or we're not going to give you what you are asking for. There's a ton of numbers that are being floated out there, verified reports, but that's the Cliff Notes version of what's going on. So the two sides could not come to an agreement, and I highly doubt there's going to be that come to Jesus moment where Nico and Tennessee make up and he's their starting quarterback next year for the Volunteers. And it's because Nico skipped practice on Friday, and Tennessee did not like that. And as a result, they're cutting bait. Nico's moving on. That's the situation. That's the Cliff Notes version of what's going on with Nico Iamaleava and Tennessee. He immediately becomes one of, if not the top players in the spring transfer portal. Why is this important to Syracuse? All right. It's very simple. Syracuse is playing Tennessee week one in Atlanta. How about that? And now, who's their starting quarterback? Because Nico Iamaleava, there are mixed opinions about him. Some say he's good, he's developing. Some say he's not very good. He struggled last year against top competition. All fair and valid points. But here's the reality. He is a former five-star recruit in the class of 2023. He was one of the top players overall in the country. 2024 was his first full season as a starting quarterback. He played 13 games. He completed 64% of his passes, about 3,000 combined passing and rushing yards, 22 total touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So the numbers say he had a pretty decent year over at Tennessee. And we did a podcast in January talking about the quarterbacks that Syracuse is scheduled to face this upcoming season. And little did we know that Nico was going to enter the transfer portal. I don't think that was on anyone's radar at the time. It's important also because Nico was one of the Heisman frontrunners, or one of the Heisman favorites. That's what the odds makers were saying in their way too early lists. And obviously they're way too early, but he was, I think, top 5 over on FanDuel when we were going over all the quarterbacks they were going to face, because it's reasonable to assume that he's going to get better with another full year of starting, right? So now Tennessee's not going to have him in week one against Syracuse. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim that the game just got a whole lot easier. I'm not going to do that, because we'll talk about it coming up just in a second. Tennessee still has some pretty capable backup quarterbacks, and I would not be surprised if they go in the spring transfer portal window. So, who is going to replace Nico Iamaleava for Tennessee and face the Syracuse Orange in Atlanta for week one of the college football season? Number one, I just said it. They could get a quarterback in the spring portal. Spring portal opens up on Thursday, and I would not be surprised if a top quarterback becomes available if Tennessee started sniffing around. Wouldn't be surprised. It's reasonable to assume all that money that they were going to spend on Nico Iamaleava for this upcoming season, well, now they have it, so maybe a quarterback becomes available and they decide to use it on him. We'll just have to monitor it over the coming days and weeks. Number two, and I think for now it's the more likely option because we don't know the other quarterbacks that are really going to be available in the spring portal, is they stay in-house. They have two scholarship quarterbacks on their roster right now, Jake Merklinger, a redshirt freshman, and George MacIntyre, a true freshman. Merklinger was a four-star recruit in 2024 who threw 9 passes last season for Tennessee, and MacIntyre is a four-star recruit in the 2025 recruiting class. So regardless of who wins the Tennessee quarterback battle, it's probably going to be Merklinger, given that he was at Tennessee a year ago. Syracuse is still going to face a talented four-star quarterback. That's the reason why I'm not coming on here saying, oh, this game just got a whole lot easier, because it's Tennessee and they still recruit talent. The only, I guess, advantage for Syracuse now that they are getting is that in week 1, they are no longer going to face a experienced starting quarterback, one that's already played a full season in Tennessee, already knows the system, and has a reasonable chance of getting that much better in 2025 compared to 2024. Because again, Nico is a former 5-star quarterback who maybe was up and down his first full season of starting, but would it shock anyone if he got much better in his second full year starting? It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if he goes somewhere else and puts up great numbers, has a fantastic year, and declares for the NFL draft and goes in the top 10. Like, that's on the table for Nico Iamaleava. It is. So that's the advantage, I guess. They're not going to play an experienced starting quarterback anymore. It's kind of leveling the playing field. I've talked about it with Ricky Collins, who's going to start for Syracuse in week 1, how he's never started a game in college. Never. Well, now it's probably going to be the same thing with Tennessee unless they decide to get one in the spring portal, which we cannot rule out. What are your thoughts on Nico Iamaleava entering the transfer portal and the chaos going on over at Tennessee? I want to hear from you in the comments section below. And do you think the game just got easier for Syracuse, or do you still think it's going to be a really tough test going up against Tennessee? I certainly think the game is not going to be easy no matter what, but I want to hear from you in the comments section below. So coming up, we'll talk about the possible destinations for Nico Iamaleava and how they still relate to Syracuse. All that and more coming up on Locked On Syracuse. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we're talking about Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee, their starting quarterback from a year ago, entering the transfer portal and how it impacts Syracuse in week 1. Bottom line is now they're going to face a less experienced starter, barring Tennessee adding a quarterback in the spring portal window. But Syracuse could still face Nico Iamaleava next season, because we're going to talk about now the possible destinations for Nico in the spring portal. Here's the deal. Whether you believe he's worth a certain amount of money or not, regardless, someone is going to pay him. Maybe it's not exactly what he wants, but someone's going to pay him. He's a former starting quarterback in the SEC for a team that made the college football playoff. Okay, someone is going to pay this guy. The question is really, how is it going to relate to Syracuse? Okay, let's get this out of the way. Syracuse, I highly doubt, because you can never put anything past Fran Brown, but I highly doubt they will be in the quote-unquote sweepstakes for Nico Iamaleava in the spring portal. I think it's a couple of reasons. Number one, I think they're pretty content with Ricky Collins. They just named him the starting quarterback. They got him in the last transfer portal window from LSU. Yes, he's dealing with a hand injury, and he did not play in the spring game, but it's not said to be serious. So they seem content with Ricky Collins. And number two, they can't afford him. So even if they wanted Nico Iamaleava and they're like, hey, sorry, Ricky Collins, we know we just named you the starting quarterback, but hey, we did not anticipate this guy becoming available. Sorry, man. Hate to break it to you, but you're going to sit on the bench another year. They can't afford him anyway. That's just the bottom line. So Nico Iamaleava and Syracuse, not going to happen. However, here's the way they still play him. One of the possible destinations for Nico Iamaleava, in fact, I think it's my pick for where he's going to go in the spring portal, Notre Dame. Notre Dame makes a whole lot of sense for him, and I don't think we want Nico ending up there. Regardless of how you feel about him, he is an improvement over what Notre Dame has this upcoming season. Riley Leonard is not coming back. He graduated, and he's probably going to get picked in the NFL draft. Syracuse is supposed to play at Notre Dame on November 22nd. The odds of Syracuse winning that game, I'll be honest with you, we got to take our orange-colored glasses off for a second and just look objectively. Unlikely that Syracuse wins. However, there's always that path of if Notre Dame gets crappy quarterback play next season, then maybe Syracuse could go into South Bend in late November and pull off an upset. But if they get Nico Iamaleava, which I think is definitely possible, that game just got a whole lot harder. Okay? He's an upgrade over whatever Notre Dame has at the quarterback position right now. He would definitely put Notre Dame in the college football playoff conversation if they're not there already. So Notre Dame is certainly a possible destination for Nico. Number three, any other destination for him, quite frankly, does not matter. We can go through the list of opponents on Syracuse's schedule, and for one reason or another, he's most likely not going to end up there, aside from Notre Dame. Because you look at the rest of the schedule, definitely not. UConn, Colgate, definitely not Clemson. I mean, they're pretty content with Kate Klubnik. Duke just paid Darian Mensah. SMU, they have Kevin Jennings. Pitt, Eli Holstein. Do they even have the money to afford them? No. Georgia Tech, they're fine with Haynes King. Miami, they just paid Carson Beck. If Miami hadn't paid Carson Beck, I would say Nico could definitely end up there. And Boston College. Pause for laughter. He's not going to Boston College. And then there's probably not, which is North Carolina. North Carolina is the only other team on the schedule besides Notre Dame where I could see a slight possibility for him to go, but they still have Max Johnson coming back from injury, I believe, and they recruited a 4-star in Bryce Baker. So I don't think it's likely he ends up anywhere else other than Notre Dame when you look at Syracuse's schedule. And again, it's because either a team already there has their quarterback on the roster, like Miami, like a Clemson, like even a Duke, they got Darian Mensah, or they just can't afford him. I'm sure UConn would love him. I'm sure UConn would love to have him. There's no way they can pay him. There's no way they can outbid a Notre Dame or a USC or a UCLA or an Ohio State or Oregon if those schools decide to get involved as well. The only scenario where this would still impact Syracuse is if Nico Iamaleava goes to, I don't know, insert school, let's call it USC, and then someone from USC were to transfer out and then back into the ACC. That could happen, but we'll cross that bridge if and when we get there. The bottom line is that the number one possible destination to look out for as a Syracuse fan with Nico Iamaleava is Notre Dame. Notre Dame makes the most sense. You know they can afford him if they want him. They have the need at quarterback. And if they get him, they're easily in the college football playoff conversation again. And it makes the game for Syracuse a whole lot tougher in South Bend. Where do you think Nico Iamaleava is going to end up? And do you think it will impact Syracuse? I want to hear from you in the comments section below. And are you one of those people that think Syracuse should go after him or that they can go after him? I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Coming up, we'll talk a little bit about NIL and also how Syracuse is getting a visit from a top transfer portal defensive back. All that and more coming up on Locked On Syracuse. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of steel professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Folks, thank you all for getting to this point of the podcast. If you've gotten to this point of the podcast, I hope that means that you enjoy it. And if so, if you could just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next time I am posting a podcast, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, audio, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. We talked about Nico Iamaleava entering the transfer portal, how it impacts Syracuse in week one, and also how his possible destinations could also impact Syracuse. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite topic of conversation, because it's really important: NIL, name, image, and likeness. I think in these situations, you will see a lot of people try to place blame. A lot of people a lot of people overreact, say that college sports is dead, it's done, it's over, NIL is killing the game, and it will not exist anymore. NIL is not going to kill college sports, but it's certainly changing college sports, and it's happening at lightning speed. And I guess that's what frightens a lot of people. People don't necessarily like change, period, especially when it happens at a very fast rate like NIL. But the bottom line is that college sports are going to continue to exist because they are money-making machines. That's the bottom line, all right? A lot of hate is going towards Nico Iamaleava. He seems to be more of the villain in this scenario, and Tennessee is looking like the hero, like they are the good guy for, puffing up their chest saying, no one's above the team, and, it's the principal, and we're not going to pay him what he's seeking. And the reality is that I don't think anyone here is the hero, and I don't think anyone here is the villain. I think this is just an unfortunate scenario. That's the bottom line. Nobody here deserves hate because everyone here is acting within their right. See, Nico is perfectly within his right to ask for a raise from Tennessee, especially when he looks around the quarterback market and he sees, reportedly that Carson Beck's getting over $4 million and he's stuck at around $2 million. Even if you think Carson Beck is better than Nico, it's not a $2 million difference. So Nico's within his right to see what his market is and enter the transfer portal. And Tennessee is perfectly within its right to hold its ground and say, we're not paying you anymore. Both sides are acting within their right. It's just a contract negotiation that got really ugly and seemingly out of hand very quickly. And so people are freaking out, even though this happens also in pro sports. This is like a hold-in. So this was a hold-in, which you see in the NFL all the time with players going to training camp and then not practicing, but they're going to training camp so they can avoid the fines. It happens a lot in the NFL. What's Nico worth? I think it just depends on what the market says he's worth. He could go enter the spring portal and not get offers from what Tennessee was offering. That could happen. In that case, it backfired on Nico. Chances are he will get more. But that could certainly happen, and that would be Nico's problem. Bottom line, though, is that this is just a messy contract negotiation. And I've been on record saying that money is not everything. And I stand by that. Money is not everything necessarily for all these athletes, but it certainly matters. And it really matters when the money is far apart, which appears to be the case with Nico Iamaleava and Tennessee. This doesn't seem to be like, we're so close to the finish line. We just need a small little compromise. Like, no, this seems like a contract negotiation that Nico's at one number, Tennessee's at another, and there is no middle ground here. And so both sides just have to go their separate ways. I actually gave the example with Syracuse a year ago, Syracuse basketball a year ago in the transfer portal. And I talked about how, hey, look, they had a meeting with Kadari Richmond, or they had a phone call with him when he was in the portal, but St. John's basically doubled their NIL offer than what Syracuse was offering. In that case, money is definitely going to matter because you're not in the ballpark. You're not in the ballpark. Bottom line, right? Could this happen to Syracuse? Absolutely. This could happen to Syracuse. Essentially, the opposite occurred with Syracuse basketball this offseason, the opposite outcome when they're trying to keep JJ Starling. They're trying to keep Donnie Freeman from entering the transfer portal. And we'd like to all think that they just stayed out of the goodness of their hearts. But I think we can all agree that they didn't come cheap to stay with Syracuse. And it could certainly happen with a Syracuse quarterback this upcoming season. I think we'd all be thrilled if Ricky Collins had a fantastic year with Syracuse, right? We'd all be thrilled. That'd be great. And then he has a great year, and he comes to Syracuse in the offseason and says, hey, I want more money. That could easily happen. And I'm not trying to sit here and suggest that Ricky Collins would then, do this hold in and miss a practice and rub people the wrong way because of it. But it's just a reality of what goes on in college sports because these athletes are now getting paid. And so when they see the market for other quarterbacks or other players at their position and what they're getting compared to themselves, they want to try to capitalize on that. And so this could easily happen with Syracuse and could happen with any other school around the country. If it could happen with Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, nobody is safe. That's just the bottom line. A lot of people here will also talk about we need guardrails with NIL. It's not that I disagree with you all, because truthfully, I think a lot of your ideas are good ideas. Multi-year deals. Nico, by the way, did stay 2 years at Tennessee for what it's worth, but multi-year contracts, limiting the amount of times you can enter the transfer portal, perhaps having a sitting out if you enter the transfer portal. Those are good. Capping NIL. Sounds great, but they're all not feasible solutions. The only feasible solution here is that the players unionize and there is a collective bargaining agreement with the NCAA. That's it. Because these guardrails that people will suggest, including you all, mostly in the comments section, I reply to you all the time about NIL. They used to exist. The NCAA has been around for over 100 years, and players could not get paid, and players could not enter the transfer portal and play the following season because there was a rule saying you couldn't. If you're actually looking for anyone to blame, it's the courts, because the courts are basically telling the NCAA you can't have rules. That's the issue here. If you're looking for anyone to blame the courts. It's their problem because they're telling the NCAA you can't restrict someone's name, image, and likeness. The transfer portal rules that you had, well, they restrict name, image, and likeness, so you can't have those either. The players and the NCAA need to have a collective bargaining agreement. That is the solution to what's going on here with NIL. Otherwise, it's just going to continue to be the wild, wild west. And these numbers that you're hearing about are only going to go up and up and up and up. That is the bottom line with NIL. Syracuse football, on a brighter note, is getting a visit from one of the top transfer defensive backs available right now. His name is Julian Neal. Really unfortunate situation. He was at Fresno State, I believe, for 4 years. He was in the fall portal window, and then he committed to Stanford, but Stanford had a very not good situation happen over there with their head coach, so he was let go, and that allows everyone, obviously, to get that free pass to enter the portal. And he's visiting today, and I think it would be huge for Syracuse and their defensive back room. I think they definitely could use another corner. You pair him with Demetrius Samuel. You pair him also with a guy like Davian Kerr. All of a sudden, you add in more experience. I think it would be terrific, and we'll do a full podcast tomorrow breaking down how Julian Neal makes a whole lot of sense for Syracuse football and their secondary. Also, what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse? Well, I've mentioned it a couple of times here on this podcast, the spring transfer portal window. That opens up on Thursday, April 16th. So yes, there will be dual portal windows. Basketball's still going on, and football is about to reopen very, very soon. Lastly, I want to hear from you in the comment section below. What are your ideas to, I guess, fix college sports? Are they feasible? Are they not feasible? I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. You can find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. Helps the channel grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again soon.